Well. Once again, uh, The Blossoms of the Savannah by Henry Ole. Of course, the analysis is done by none other than Mr. Sherlock. Don't forget that. This time round, we're going to be looking at what was that? We're going to be looking at different themes and language use, not themes, but literally language use. Stylistic devices, those are figurative language aspects that have been incorporated by the writer Henry Ole to bring out his intended purpose, especially now to be more specific, that is in chapter 1. As usual, grab a pen, a notebook, and a place comfortable because we're going to go through this work together. So, straightforward, without wasting time, stylistic devices. Stylistic devices. 1. Description. Description is a broad stylistic device that may involve figurative language and also blunt-faced creation of mental images using descriptive adjectives. Blunt-faced creation of mental images would also be referred to as vivid images that some words will create in the reader's mind. You are able to imagine of the scenario through a description of either the setting, a person, and even a place. For example, Tayo's boyfriend, description on page 3: lanky, dark-haired, blunt-faced young man whose big, languid eyes. Now, that kind of description creates a mental picture of Lenjir, who is the boyfriend to Tayo. However, not cryptic to make us see him and recognize him, but through those words, descriptive words, we are able to create a mental picture of who Lenjir would possibly look like. Mama Milanoi on page 9. She wore her dark hair in braids that accentuated her wide eyes. Her breasts were full and heavy, her waist slender. The description right there reveals why person may feeling for her or love for her. In other words, some specific words can be used to describe a situation, a person, and this helps us as the reader to create that mental picture at the back of our mind of whom or what the figure that is referred would possibly look like. Another aspect of figurative language, of stylistic devices rather, is the use of figurative language. Students, what is figurative language? Figurative language involves the use of words and phrases that have meaning outside the exact meaning of the particular words used. In other words, they are implicit. Implicit meaning that they are indirect. You have to find out what the writer exactly means by the use of those words or phrases. In this case, we look at the use of similes, metaphors, personification, symbolism, and hyperbole. To begin with, students, let me go straight to similes. Similes, what are they? Or what stylistic device is this? It is a comparison imagery that uses like or as to show the similarities in things. For instance, and I quote from the text, opening quotation speech, then the first case, now like a baby who must be born at the fullness of time. This had come to pass, that is page 7, which exactly refers to Kaelo's laws of Job as something as inevitable as giving birth. Another aspect of a simile right there is, I open the quotation mark right there, to hunt her like a demented spirit of a past that, end of quote. You can also find that particular simile on page 8. Though a simile is ushering the life the Kaelos were moving to after Nakuru, Mama Milanoi now knows that the empty words of the villagers were now coming to pass, and she dreaded the future. Another simile is that likened him to a mono-eyed giant who stood on legs of straw, page 13. Students, it's good to remember that similes is the comparison imagery, comparing two aspects, one to another, to show the similarities in things, instances, and even people. And those are just but examples. The text, the Blossoms of Savannah. Another aspect of figurative language is the use of a metaphor. The metaphor is more direct in comparison than a simile. However, it is more complex given that one thing is referred to as the other. Example, melting pot that Nakuru had become. Now, in other words, Nakuru was not a melting pot. Neither is a melting pot Nakuru. But the direct likening of a melting pot to that of Nakuru qualifies this statement to be a metaphor. So it's a direct resampling of one thing to another, but complex given that one thing is referred to as the other. Another figurative language is personification. In personification, abstract ideas take up form and are given human qualities. In other words, inanimate objects or non-living objects, they take up form, or they take up the living abilities and are given human qualities like eating, sleeping, moving, thinking, and so forth. In an example from the text, that is chapter 1, is, and I quote there, mind roaming the distant past. Mind roaming the distant past. The mind has been given the ability to roam to the past, or to really go into the past. In other words, it means that whoever that underwent this statement or the scenario was literally looking at the back in his or her past life. Another aspect of figurative language is omniscient narrator. Omniscient narrator. This is more of a point of view and angle with which the narrator tells the events in the story in the Blossoms of the Savannah. The narrator gets into the minds of the characters and reveals to us what they are thinking and their feelings towards others or certain things. Example include page 8, whereby there is a revelation of a lot about Mama Milano's thoughts. Page 9 to 10 explores the mind of Parsmei or Lekaelo, and page 12 navigates through the mind of Parsmei's brother Simiren. In other words, a situation whereby we are able to see the thoughts of the characters. Yeah. So, and whoever that narrates, or the background narration of what the writer is undergoing, would in this case suggest that that narrator is omniscient, is not seen, but we can manage, or we can be able to see the thoughts of the writers, of the characters as they are used in the text. Okay, good. There is the use of vernacular. The book revolves around the Maasai tradition. The writer has extensively explored the Ma language, using words like yeyo, intoye, nemengalana, olmorijoi, olkunchai, papai within the chapter. So the words domesticate the issues within the book to the Maasai, as well as reveals more about the Ma culture, especially the female circumcision. Another figurative language, students, is the use of dialogue. The two daughters of Kaelo engage in a dialogue that is in page 2 to 5, in which the view of life of the two girls is revealed. Tayo is optimistic about life. However, her sister is pessimist. The conversation also reveals the easily trusting nature of Tayo and the skeptical Resian. As they talk, we learn about their love for education and their need for their father's approval to join university, which lies in the more confident Tayo rather. The dialogue develops the characters of the two girls and reveals who the father's favorite is. Good students, this marks the end of the use of stylistic devices as per to chapter 1, but that is not the end of it. I would prefer, as usual, that you pause at certain intervals, because it is worthy paying attention to every word and in each line. That also requires you to write some short notes, and later on I'm also going to ask you questions on the same chapter. Adios for now.